Hello, and welcome to this video on an easy-to-use, affordable video synth. This is Rorschach from Lumatic Visual Devices, and I'll say there's going to be flashing images in this video, so turn it off if that's not for you, but here's what's to come. Rorschach creates a composite black and white video pattern that focuses on experimentation and integration with modular systems and CV. It's a standalone device that has a center positive 9V power inlet, but it comes with a battery clip as well. Rorschach has an analog RCA output for the analog video control, but it's a hybrid analog and digital video synth that comes with some onboard pattern generation, making things really simple to use, and there's also some onboard modulation. There's loads of simple controls that all have CV and gate inputs, so let's just go into looking at a simpler pattern on screen and going through the controls. Let's look at a single pixel or close to a single pixel here. And these four controls are for the horizontal position, the vertical position, and then the horizontal width and the vertical width. And you can modulate all of these with external CV. There's onboard randomness and on and off switches to engage whether that randomness routes to these vertical and horizontal, both widths and positions. And with them all on here, you can see we can start to randomize that visual. And with those switches off, that cuts off the routing of random modulation to these four controls, and they have gate inputs, so you can gate back on and off, routing this random to them. And there's also a CV over random amount as well. It's worth noting that the CV inputs all work within a 0 to 5V range, but it doesn't break anything patching negative voltages in or higher voltages, it just clips off that behavior. So I've just kind of thrown anything out of my Eurorack system into it so far. You can mirror this visual both horizontally and vertically, and you can see how then we have these mirrored behaviors for these controls. And then possibly the main control here is called form, and that shifts through multiple pattern generator modes. You get CV over form as well. Let's just take a look at some of these different patterns. I'll turn off the mirror. Let's open up the width slightly. And as you play with these width and position controls, you can see how these have a different effect on the different visuals that it's creating. And again, how these things mirror. You can change the pattern color from black and white to inverted, and there's 3 clear modes to clear the pattern, where it's always clearing there at the top, where it randomly clears, filling in more of that screen, and slowly clearing, or no clear at all, where this will just continue to fill that screen, but you get a gate input to clear this if you'd like to do that externally. In case I didn't say it, those mirror switches also have gate inputs. And there's also then a bonus audio output, which is a kind of lo-fi glitchy drone that modulates in tone and sound alongside those visuals. We'll explore that in a moment. And I think that's about it. We'll first explore how I have things set up, some bits of kind of nice to have adapters and cables and things like that, if like me you are new to using video synths like this. But I've had lots of fun with both the audio out, the visuals as you'll see, and just kind of modulating the hell out of it, both randomly and more intentionally with my Eurorack system. It's worth noting this is available as both a DIY build and an assembled unit, and it's currently sub £200 built here in the UK, so it's a very affordable entry into video synths too. Check out the timing index on screen and linked below, and without further ado, let's dive in. So here's how I've been set up and how you can get set up with the Rorschach here. If I just flip this up, you'll see the power inlet. It comes with this battery adapter, I'm using this rather than power, but you could use normal power. That power's on the device, and there's the RCA cable analog video output. To actually output that, I've just been using a standard stereo RCA cable, just an audio cable, certainly nothing special or purpose built for video if you like. Patching one side, and obviously using the same side, I've just been taking one side of that RCA out into wherever I've been going. You can get, if you have analog sources like an old TV, SCART adapters, so you could actually output that analog video into a SCART and then go into a SCART compatible device. But I've been using an analog to digital converter here. There's loads of these cheap on Amazon, and I believe Lumatic visual devices will offer some guidance on what to grab as well. But that takes, when it's powered via its own USB power input, it takes your analog video and outputs a HDMI cable. So you could take a HDMI cable and then go into, say, a modern TV or a projector, anything that takes HDMI, say. But I've been using this video capture card. There's plenty of these online as well. They will take a HDMI signal and patch that into USB. I'm taking analog video in, converting to HDMI, and then I'm going into my computer, and I've had my laptop just kind of off screen from the video I've created here, both capturing and recording that USB video signal, and also just to monitor it as I'm playing around. So here we're exploring the audio out of Rorschach. And you can hear it ties into those visuals, the glitchiness and movement in those visuals on screen is apparent in that audio. And as I change the form here, it's quite a wide range of different sounds. Now you could filter this back. I have this boosted up in a couple of utilities. It's not a Eurorack level output, but they're into a filter. Cutoff's just here in the top right of the screen. There's some usable tones. Quite nice randomizing things there and hearing it as well as seeing it. Let's just filter this back. And I have found that it's tuned, or rather that what's coming out here, I can tune to it at 101 Hz. Now I have the waveform generator on data, so if I turn that up in the mix, adjusting the level on data there. There's a sine wave at 101 Hz, and as I open up the filter that this is going into, things sound in tune. And as I go up, say in octaves or the harmonic series, if I change to say a saw wave, the richer harmonics in this wave will kind of marry into these ones a bit better. And 101 Hz is a G that's sharp, so if you tune to G and then a bit sharp, you can play around and harmonize with this, which is what we'll do in the next patch. So here I'm exploring creating a synergy between visuals and a big modular kind of ambient drone by using the same LFOs to modulate my audio patch to also modulate the visuals. I'm also using the audio output from the Rorschach here. Just play around for a moment briefly, and then we'll get into it. So running through the patch here, I have the Rorschach audio output being boosted a couple of times in some utilities, but it's coming into this low pass filter Trivium here, which I'm just using as a low pass filter. And this, along with my drone, hits a load of big ambient effects that I'm going to leave on throughout the demo. All the internal movement and glitchiness is in that crunchy audio. and I've just tuned my patch to then play along with it. Hopefully you're starting to see and kind of feel and sense this synergy and unison between the movement in the visuals and the movement in the patch. It's unmodulated by 4 oct LFOs, green, blue, red and yellow cables, and the same colour traces there on the scope. They're modulating the amount of detune on a super source stack for my oscillator. They're modulating both sides of a filter, as well as just the general movement of that filter. And they're then modulating the vertical and horizontal positions on Rorschach. And if I turn the mirroring off here, maybe even change the form a little bit, hopefully you can sense that horizontal and vertical movement and the width in horizontal and vertical planes too. I'm set up here to freeze oct, so if I freeze the oct here, you can see there's still movement on the Rorschach here. It's just internal kind of glitchy scanning if you like, but that movement and pattern all changes when those LFOs are moving. And then if I speed up all these LFOs, we're seeing those changes and obviously hearing them in the drone much more clearly. Let's change the form here, set up those mirrors again, and I'll just play around on the keyboard, finding notes that I think work well with the note coming out of Rorschach's audio. So with this patch, I wanted to marry up my sequencing with sequencing the visuals. And the first thing I wanted to do is to take that snare hit on beats 2 and 4, and I have the green trace here on data and the green cable, which is a random voltage when that snare hits. So random, 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 random. You get the idea. So I'm going to patch that into form. And I have a simple setup here, nothing is random on the device, you can just see the kind of scanning glitchy graphics that it gives as is. But as I then start to modulate the form, on those snare hits, it's changing the form and that pattern of visuals that it's creating. The other thing I wanted to do here as well was try envelopes, so removing this for a second, the blue trace is just an envelope that plays once right at the start of the bar. It's this pattern here, just a single gate from an envelope. It's the blue trace on the scope. So you could use that, say, to position, maybe vertical position. And you can see we've got that dipping and pulling back up at the screen, which is envelope controlled visual modulation. So that plus the randomness on those snare hits to the form I think is starting to create some interesting visuals. And those mirrors come in handy so you can get things mirrored or static. So let's try gating those as well. If we leave these off, these actually have gate inputs. So I have DivKid here playing off 8 notes, which is a just a hi-hat pattern. And I'm coin tossing with a gate here on the DivKid, creating 2 different gates. So it'll create one gate and then the other and randomly shift between them. And we'll use these to turn the mirror on the visuals on or off. Again, if I remove randomness of form and envelope to position, we'll see these a bit clearer. You can see there when it horizontally mirrors. Let's do a vertical mirror. So with both of them, we're changing between horizontally or vertically mirroring randomly. Plus that envelope to position and the randomness of form. We've got envelope position shifted, randomly gated mirroring, randomly form shifting on those snare hits, with its own nice glitchy flavour. So here I'm exploring marrying up melodic information, Volt Pro Octave CV in this case, for my audio patch with Volt Pro Octave changes in form there on Rorschach. Now there isn't any kind of Volt Pro Octave tracking or anything here on Rorschach, but you can see how I'm using that melody, that Volt Pro Octave signal, to change the form and pattern every time a new note plays. And it's repetitive, because my pattern's repetitive, rather than being some kind of clocked or stepped random change. Now removing that, I have these other 2 bits of modulation, also modulating the visuals. And these are on attenuators. So the triangle LFO that modulates rings position is also going to modulate the vertical position of the visuals. They're coming into here as an attenuator, and as I turn that up, let's actually take the mirroring off here as well. Now these are all 0 to 5 volts as we've said, so any negative voltage in that LFO will be ignored, and you can see that represented in the visual there where it's static. So you could use a unipolar source, or like I'm doing here, just not really care. I can see that LFO in vertical position move up and down. And then the stepped random goes to horizontal position. So that's randomly changing alongside the brightness randomly changing in my sound. So LFO to vertical position, stepped random to horizontal position. Those are my tonal modulators for rings. Now let's drop the attenuation on those again. Put the Volt Pro Octave pitch back into forms. Let's bring the modulation back in. And then play around with those mirrors. And then changing form, we can then start in a different position and modulate through different shapes and patterns in our visuals. So here I'm exploring the onboard randomization of some of the parameters. And you have a random amount and then switches to enable or disable the randomness modulating vertical and horizontal positions and vertical and horizontal widths. They're all on currently, so as I turn them up, you can have a more subtle amount of modulation, although the rate of that randomness is quite fast and jittery as you can see. Or you can go much deeper, much wider, kind of send your visuals all over the place. But what's really fun here, other than the ability to select where this goes on these switches, is to turn them off and then use gates to modulate them back on again. So if I enable a gate here from the DivKid, with quarter notes, I'm driving the clocking of DivKid, so every quarter note will potentially get some random gates. I'm in gate mode, but let's just turn them all on. And you can see when I'm firing random gates in with these LED cables to enable randomness at this value being sent to these 4 settings. And quarter notes is maybe too fast with these already fast scattery visuals. We might want to slow that change down, so let's say do it once per bar here. And you could sequence this rather than using DivKid random gates. Let's turn them all off and find a different form here. If you've got this far in the video, drop a visual sync down in the comments. And while this definitely has this lo-fi, pixelated, stylized output here, I think there's a lot to explore, certainly with all the CV and gate inputs, and I'll be continuing to explore that marriage of Eurorack audio with Eurorack modulation into Rorschach, playing around. Head over to patreon.com/DivKid to support what I do, to join the DivKid Discord community, to lots of exclusive videos and patch PDF cookbooks. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!